It was a crisp autumn morning in suburban Chicago, the kind where the leaves crunch underfoot like nature's confetti, and the air carries the faint scent of pumpkin spice from every Starbucks on the block. I was 23-year-old Mia Thompson, fresh out of Northwestern University with a business degree clutched in my optimistic hands, ready to conquer the world, or at least pay off my student loans. Little did I know, the real education was about to come from the person I trusted most. My Uncle Rick, the family golden boy, the self-made millionaire who preached about blood being thicker than water at every Thanksgiving dinner. He wasn't just family, he was my mentor, my safety net. But on that fateful day in October 2024, as I handed over my life savings for what he called the investment of a lifetime, I had no idea I was stepping into a web of deceit spun by my own kin. What followed wasn't just a scam, it was a betrayal that shattered our family tree. And my revenge? It wasn't petty vandalism or a screaming match, it was a calculated masterpiece that left him bankrupt, broken, and begging for mercy. This is the story of how I turned the tables, exposing the wolf in sheep's clothing, and rebuilt my empire from the ruins he created. To understand the depth of the betrayal, you have to go back to the roots, buried deep in the heartland of Illinois. Our family was classic Midwest stock. Think potlucks, Bears games on Sundays, and unspoken code of loyalty that bound us tighter than a cornfield in harvest season. Uncle Rick was the success story everyone envied. He left our small town of Naperville at 18, hustled his way through Wall Street in the 90s, and returned a decade later with a fleet of luxury cars and a sprawling estate on Lake Michigan. He ran Thompson Investments, a boutique firm specializing in real estate flips and stock portfolios for everyday folks like us. My parents, simple teachers, idolized him. Rick's got the Midas touch, Dad would say, clapping him on the back during barbecues. I worshipped the ground he walked on. As a kid, he'd slip me $20 bills and whisper, "Invest it wisely, kiddo, that's how fortunes are made." By 2023, I'd graduated summa cum laude, landing an entry-level gig at a Chicago fintech startup. But dreams don't pay bills, and with $80,000 in student debt looming like a storm cloud, I confided in Uncle Rick over Easter brunch. "Mia, I've got just the thing," he said, his eyes twinkling like a used car salesman. He pitched me on a surefire real estate venture, a condo development in booming Austin, Texas, backed by ironclad partners. "Put in what you can, I'll match it and handle the rest. Family takes care of family." I scraped together $50,000, every penny from my savings, part-time gigs at Starbucks, and even a small inheritance from Grandma. He promised 200% returns in a year. We shook on it, sealed with a hug and a toast of cheap Chardonnay. The first red flag waved subtly, like a whisper in the wind. Months passed with vague updates. "Deals are progressing," he'd text, followed by emojis of dollar signs. I'd check in during family Zoom calls, and he'd pivot to stories of his latest yacht trip to Florida. My parents brushed off my worries. "Rick knows what he's doing, honey." But by spring 2025, the excuses piled up, delays due to permits, then market fluctuations. I asked for paperwork. He sent PDFs that looked legit but felt off, fonts mismatched, signatures blurry. Then, the hammer dropped. One sweltering July afternoon, I logged into my bank app to find my account frozen. A fraud alert. Unauthorized transfers traced back to Thompson Investments. Panic set in like wildfire. I drove to his office in downtown Chicago, a sleek glass tower overlooking Millennium Park. His secretary stalled me, but I barged in anyway. There he was, feet up on a mahogany desk, sipping scotch at 2 p.m. "Mia, what's the fuss?" he chuckled. That's when the truth unraveled like a cheap sweater. The investment was a Ponzi scheme, my money funneled into his gambling debts from Vegas weekends and a failing side hustle in crypto. He'd scammed not just me, but cousins, aunts, even his own sister, my mom, out of her retirement fund. "It's temporary," he admitted, not a shred of remorse. "I'll pay it back when the big deal closes." But the big deal was a mirage. He'd been living large on our dime, private jets to Miami, a mistress in New York, all while our family savings evaporated. The betrayal hit harder than a Midwest blizzard. This wasn't a stranger, This was blood. I stormed out, tears blurring the city skyline, vowing not to let him destroy us. That night, alone in my cramped Wrigleyville apartment, surrounded by takeout boxes from Giordano's deep dish pizza, the seed of revenge took root. I wasn't going to the cops yet, too messy, too public for our tight-knit clan. No, I'd play his game, but smarter. I'd turn his empire of lies into ashes, bankrupting him legally, publicly, and irreversibly. Phase 1. Intel Gathering. I became a ghost online, creating fake profiles on LinkedIn and Facebook to infiltrate his network. Posing as a potential investor, I emailed him from a burner account, fishing for details. He bit, sending glossy brochures that matched the fakes he'd given me. I cross-referenced them with public records via the Illinois Secretary of State's website, discrepancies everywhere, unregistered LLCs, forged signatures. But I needed more. Remembering my college internship at a forensic accounting firm, I reached out to an old professor, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a no-nonsense Latina powerhouse who'd taught me auditing. Over coffee at a cozy spot in Lincoln Park, I spilled the beans. "Mia, this smells like fraud," she said, eyes narrowing. She connected me with a pro bono legal clinic for victims of financial scams. Together, we dug deeper. Using free tools like the SEC's Edgar database, we uncovered Uncle Rick's history, a string of failed ventures in the early 2000s, brushed under the rug with settlements. He'd been investigated for insider trading in 2010 but slithered out. We subpoenaed bank records, anonymously at first, through the clinic, revealing a web of shell companies routing funds to offshore accounts in the Caymans. The suspense built like a Hitchcock film, each discovery a twist in the plot. I tailed him discreetly, borrowing a friend's Prius to follow his Mercedes to shady meetings in seedy motels on the outskirts of Gary, Indiana. One night, I snapped photos of him handing envelopes to a burly guy who screamed, "Loan shark." Back home, I'd pore over spreadsheets till dawn, fueled by Red Bull and rage. My parents were in denial at first. Rick wouldn't do that. But when I showed them the evidence, Mom broke down. Dad, ever the stoic, nodded grimly, "Do what you have to, Mia." The family rift deepened, cousins stopped speaking, holidays canceled. But I pressed on, knowing exposure was key. Phase 2. The Alliance. I wasn't alone in this. Through online forums like Reddit's r/personal finance and r/scams, I connected with other victims, a retired couple from Milwaukee he'd bilked out of $200,000, a single mom in St. Louis down $30,000. We formed a secret group chat, Rick's Reckoning, sharing stories and evidence. One member, a hacker hobbyist from Detroit, ethically, of course, we kept it legal, helped trace digital footprints, emails from Rick promising guaranteed returns that violated SEC rules. We compiled a dossier thick as a phone book, ready for the kill. The turning point came in September 2025, during Chicago's annual financial expo at McCormick Place, a glittering event where suits networked over caviar and craft beer. Uncle Rick was keynote speaker, touting ethical investing in turbulent times. I bought a ticket, disguised in a wig and glasses like a bad spy movie. As he pontificated on stage, boasting about his family-first firm, I triggered the bomb. From my laptop in the audience, I anonymously emailed the expo organizers, reporters from the Chicago Tribune, and SEC whistleblower hotline, attaching our dossier. Chaos ensued mid-speech. Phones buzzed, whispers spread. A Tribune journalist stood up. "Mr. Thompson, care to comment on allegations of fraud?" The room froze. Rick stammered, sweat beading on his forehead under the spotlights. Security escorted him out as attendees murmured. That night, the story broke online. Local investor accused of multi-million-dollar scam targeting family. Shares in his publicly traded side venture plummeted 80% overnight. Creditors came calling, banks froze assets. But I wasn't done. Phase 3, the legal blitz. With our group, we filed a class action lawsuit in federal court, citing RICO violations, racketeering, baby. The judge, a sharp woman from the South Side, fast-tracked it. Evidence poured in, witness testimonies, bank trails, even recordings from victims who'd wired him money. As the trial dragged into winter, The suspense was palpable, depositions in sterile conference rooms, Rick's lawyers scrambling like rats on a sinking ship. He tried to settle, offering pennies on the dollar, but we refused. The climax hit in December 2025, just before Christmas. On the stand, Rick cracked, admitting under oath to misallocating funds to cover personal debts. The jury deliberated for hours, but the verdict was swift, guilty on all counts. Fines totaled $5 million, assets seized, including his lake house and yacht. Bankruptcy followed like clockwork, Chapter 7, liquidating everything. He ended up in a rundown apartment in Joliet, flipping burgers at a McDonald's drive-thru, a far cry from his glory days. But here's the mind-blowing twist that no one saw coming. During the investigation, a DNA test ordered for unrelated reasons, long story, involving a family health scare, revealed Rick wasn't my uncle at all. He was a con artist who'd married into the family decades ago, faking his lineage with forged documents. My real uncle had died young. This imposter had assumed his identity. The revelation shattered what was left of our family, but it sealed his fate, additional charges for identity theft. Now, as I write this from my new office in Chicago's Loop, heading my own ethical investment firm, Thompson Reborn, reclaimed and rebranded, I sip a latte and gaze at the snowy skyline. We've recovered most of the money through restitution, and I've turned our story into a best-selling book, Blood Money, Surviving Family Fraud. Speaking gigs at TEDx and podcasts keep the message alive. Trust, but verify. Rick? He's a cautionary tale, bankrupt in every sense, financially, morally, socially. Revenge didn't just bankrupt him, it empowered me, turning a scam into my superpower. In America's land of opportunity, sometimes you have to burn it all down to rise again. And if you're facing your own betrayer, remember, the tables can always turn. Just make sure you're the one spinning them.